Well, good afternoon, everybody, and on behalf of Harkness, I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's presentation on premium seating. Joined with me today is Matt Johans, our Technical Services Manager, and over the next half an hour, 40 minutes, we hope we can give you some very interesting and hopefully insightful information on other aspects that can affect the quality of premium seating. So just a few pieces of information before we start, just to let you know that we're recording today's session, and like with our other web seminar presentations, this will be available via our website to review again, or indeed to share with colleagues, hopefully later on this afternoon, if not certainly tomorrow. Today's presentation is going to be about 40 minutes in length. As I said, hopefully it will provide you with some insight onto things such as theatre dynamics and equipment specification and how those might affect seating. We'll show you ways that we're able to visualize the performance of seating within a theatre. We'll share with you some very interesting consumer insight from some research that we commissioned back in March this year. And at the end, you'll hopefully be able to poll Matt and I's brains on any of the questions that you may have that arise during the presentation this afternoon. If you do have any questions during the presentation, do feel free to use the chat box, and one of us will hopefully aim to answer those at the end of the presentation. So just a very brief introduction. I'm aware some of you on the call this afternoon are new to Harkness. So Harkness has been in business now for 85 years this year, and at the heart of Harkness has always been innovation and creativity. From fabric screens when the business started back in 1920s, through to washable screens, through to the infancy and the screens that you see today, Harkness has always led, not just in terms of innovation and creativity, but in terms of high quality products. And the aim of the organization is to really focus on helping exhibitors around the world drive a return on the investment they make. We, as well as every other manufacturer in the industry, know that equipment is very expensive, and driving the best return enables you to quickly maximize the benefit from having those pieces of equipment. And of course, one of the great things about Harkness, particularly over the last 15 years, is that the business has grown today to be able to support our customers throughout the world with more localized manufacturing. So today we have plants in Asia, America, and in Europe. So, premium seating. I guess you're probably all sitting there and you're thinking, well, what do the screen guys know about seating? Well, somebody asked me that just a few weeks ago, and the answer was, we know nothing about seating specifically. We couldn't tell you about the rate in which seats recline or which one's more comfortable than the other. However, what we can do is tell you why, from a visual point of view, there are some aspects that can affect the quality of the presentation. So if we look back 20 to 30 years ago, there was less of a competition on our viewing public's horizon. There was less for them to be able to see the content they wanted to see unless they came to the big screen. Today we have big screen home theatres. We have 3D TVs and now curved TVs. We have TV on demand services. We have subscription services such as Netflix, where many movies are coming very quickly out of cinema and straight onto those services. And the studios, recognizing the demand to merchandise their films further, are much quicker in deploying DVD releases of their movies. So the viewing public now has much more choice as to what they view. And as well as the choice, they have the ability to get hold of the same content much quicker. There's a need to make sure that if we want to protect that box office revenue, we make sure the differential between cinema and all of those things below is maintained. Now, one of the key things that we've been aware of for a long time, and this certainly came out in our research back in March, is that the visual performance has a massive impact on the viewing experience for the person sitting there paying to watch the movie. So I'm going to share with you some information now which comes from that research. So 55% of the people that we talked to during our survey said that they choose a seat based on trying to get the best view of the screen in the middle of the auditorium. So many of the public that we spoke with understood the need to sit in the middle of the auditorium to get the best view of the screen. But we were surprised by the amount of people who said that they would choose their seats based on that. A very, very high proportion said that when they book their seats online, as many do, particularly in Europe and the US, they choose to see a movie, often depending on whether their seat choice is available. Now, some of the more avid theatre goers that we spoke to said that if they couldn't actually get to sit in the seat they wanted to sit in, they wouldn't go to the movie at all. And that's reflected here. 70% saying that they wouldn't go and see a movie if they couldn't get to that seat. Now, sometimes there are social reasons as to why they would choose a seat. Perhaps it might be the end of an aisle if you were going with a young child or somebody that needed more access. But more often than not, the avid cinema goers are saying that 70%, I want to sit in the middle. So the implication, if your customers can't get to sit in the seat that they want, well, many will go and visit your local competition if you've got it. They may well choose to view the movie at another time when they can get to see the movie in that seat. Or alternatively, they might not see the movie at all. Likewise, they might use some of those other sources we spoke about earlier, such as Netflix, or wait for a DVD release in order to see the movie. But the net effect of that is lost box office revenue. These are some more quotes that came from our consumer research. And these are really focusing primarily the first two on 3D, but all surrounding darkness or brightness. And they're saying here about the fact that they don't like watching on a screen that's dark at the edges, or they find 3D too dark. And of course, the last one is very concerning when people say they have a better experience at home than they do in the cinema. And of course, that implication, they watch the movie in 2D rather than 3D, so we lose the chance to upsell. Again, if it's 3D, they may not come and see the movie at all. And the problem is that long term, it means that the viewing public starts to dislike 3D movies, and many are skeptical even now of that. And for the future, that means that they're more inclined to come to the cinema, but only watching 2D. So we're losing revenue up front now, but also for the future. And of course, that's what we're trying to indicate there, that if we don't get the viewing performance right, we won't drive people back to the box office, and we'll lose all of this incremental revenue that's driven. And of course, this, for me, is the biggest anger of all. We live in an age of social media and where people are able to communicate very quickly to large audiences. It's no longer talking to your neighbor next door. We have the ability very quickly to reach thousands of people. So if we have customers who have a bad experience at our cinema, they're able to share it through their friends, through social media very quickly. And of course, nobody wants bad publicity from word of mouth. Yes, of course, if we want the world to know that we're investing in the best of presentation. But of course, if the presentation is bad, we want to make sure that we're doing the right things to prevent that up front. So premium seating, is it worth the upcharge? Well, I guess it's quite a subjective question, because many will say for a reclining seat, or you may be paying for in-theatre dining. So there's some questions coming up on screen now to try and help us gauge your thoughts on premium seating. So I'm going to bring the first question up. And what I'd like you to do is just to select an answer from this. So the first question says, over the next 12 months, how important is premium seating to your box office revenue strategy? I'll leave that up on screen for just a few more seconds. Okay, so I'll just share that with you very quickly. You can see that 56% are saying that this is an important part of the box office revenue strategy, and 33% very important. And then 90% of you guys out there watching this today are saying that premium seating is a vital part of what you're planning to do over the next 12 months. But of course, the question is, to what constitutes premium seating? So in your opinion, which of these items below are the most important to you for premium seating? So again, I'll leave that up for just a few more seconds. And again, I'll share this with you straight away. So what you can see there is that actually the overwhelming answer here about what's the most important part of premium seating is the visual experience, getting that performance right on the screen. And that's, I think Matt and I would probably agree, that's very pleasing to see that, and also a little surprising. So we're delighted to see that. That shows that the industry is thinking not just about the seats they place in, but performance. So what makes it a premium seat? Well, yes, it's definitely that experience, be it through the audio, through the visual means. It could be a 4D experience, or it could be comfort. It could be in-theatre dining. A lot of theatres in the US now are deploying this as a way of increasing box office revenue and also incremental sales at the concession stands. But if we look at it from a visual perspective, a premium seat should have the best brightness and uniformity possible. So up on screen coming now is a third question for you. And given that premium seating is, for the majority of you, an important part of your strategy over the next 12 months, how do you choose where to place those seats inside the auditorium? So again, on screen is a poll. Please feel free to interact with that poll. Again, I'll leave that up for just a few more seconds. So here's the result of the third poll. And actually, you can see that the visual experience is coming in at 74%. However, it's also interesting that 32% on top of the specific location. Well, the answer is that the visual experience is vital. And what we're going to do is to talk a little bit about why. Now, we see a lot of exhibitors in the field who would choose their premium seating based on choosing the back 3 rows, or indeed the middle 3 rows around that DCI position. But we also see some who decide based on other factors, and these are more scientific deployments. So on screen now you have an example auditorium. So you can see seat A on the left-hand side is in what we would call those middle 3 rows. But the key question here is, Is seat A better than seat B? Is seat A seeing a much better performance than seat B? On the face of it, looking at the picture you just saw, you would say, yes, seat A is definitely having a better experience. But there's many different elements that make up the quality of the viewing experience that a specific seat in an auditorium will achieve. Things like the auditorium shape. So it could be a long throw, narrow auditorium or a short throw, wide IMAX style auditorium. It could be the rate of your stadium seating. It could even be your projection port height, or it could be the gain of your screen. All of these factors can make a very big difference in the quality that you see on the screen. So what I'm going to do is pass over to Matt, and Matt's going to run two different examples in our digital screen modeler tool to show you just how important it is to consider all those factors if you want to ensure that your premium seating has the best viewing experience for your customers. Matt, over to you.
Thanks, Richard. So I'm just going to do a few illustrations to back up what Richard's been saying here. At the moment, you can see here now a shot from our digital screen modeler, and it's in the visual performance indicator mode. And it's basically showing the peak brightness for each seat in the auditorium. So that's a patron in each seat looking at the brightest point, typically, which is the centre of the screen. And this is typically a shorter throw auditorium, perhaps an IMAX PLF type screen. So what it's showing you there is the seats with the darkest blue area are getting 100% of peak brightness. And as it grades down, you get down towards 50% in the blues. And then when you get all the way down into the reds, the darkest red being 0% of peak brightness. That's a very, very poor experience. Now, the point we're making here is some of these seats could, of course, become unsellable. They could translate to lost revenue. People don't want to sit into those seats. So there's various options of things we can do. So first things we could do, if I wanted to improve the experience, I might want to change the gain of the screen. At the moment, we've got a Spectral 300, a very high gain screen, might not be so suitable for that auditorium. So things we can do to start with, the lamp wattage. At the moment, it's showing a 3 kilowatt lamp. We might want to lamp up to a 4 kilowatt lamp. And that gives us some more options then. We could perhaps lower the screen gain to a more suitable, perhaps lower gain screen with better viewing angles. So I'm going to change the lamp wattage now to a 4 kilowatt. Like so. I'm now going to change the screen type. So at the moment, a Spectral 300. I'm going to change that now to a Claris 170. So that's a 1.7 gain passive silver screen. Like so. And now, of course, you can see the viewing experience is drastically changed. There's a lot more blue seats and the very dark red seats have disappeared and there's much less red full stop. So what you're seeing here now is far more patrons getting a much better viewing experience. Effectively, we've translated some unsellable seats now into sellable seats. So some of this revenue could be coming back. So this is a much more suitable option for this auditorium. Also, of course, there's other things we can do in there. We might actually we could tilt the screen there, which could improve the light spread. Because some of the things in here, it's based on incident and viewing angles, and reflected light angles. So what I'm going to put in here now is a 1 degree backwards tilt, which is actually going to angle the light path now to direct more of the light back to the auditorium. And you can see the change that's made. More darker blue seats and much more seats getting a more premium experience. So that's very useful and it very easily expresses the improvement in light. So I'm going to move on from here now to another build to show you a more sort of traditional, perhaps longer throw auditorium. So if you'll bear with me one moment, and I'm just going to change over to the next build. And what you see here now is, as I said, a more traditional, a longer shaped auditorium. This will be less affected by high gain screen tabs, for example. So first of all, I'm going to engage the visual performance indicator, and let's see what's actually happening in this screen. Now we can see from here we've got some challenging seats right at the front. but the majority of the screen is getting quite a good viewing experience. But still, things can be done to improve that. So we can look at some of the geometry and, of course, the screen itself. So the first thing I'm going to try and look at here is the seating rake. So again, the seating rake dictates the position of the DCI sympathy seat where people measure light from to start with. And if we angle that seating area, it can change not only that position, but of course, the positions all around. So the seating rake now, I'm going to change that to 12 degrees, like so. I'll update that. Very quickly now we can see the change that's caused on the seats. Now we've got a lot more in the darker blue area, so this is very, very good. Of course, the geometry itself can change. In some cases, you can move things like the porthole. Of course, in some cases, that's already in place, can't be moved, but it could be we could be looking at this in design. So at the moment, we've got a 2.69 meters of port height. I'm now going to change that to 3.5 meters. So again, I'm changing that down angle. That's the incident light versus reflected light. Let's change that to 3.5 meters. I will now just update the visual performance indicator. One moment. And there we are. We can see the change that has made. Now, before I showed you also we can tilt the screen, which can again angle more of that light. It's not just the porthole, it's not just the building geometry there. So this time I'm going to put a forward tilt in. Let's say a 1.5 degree tilt forwards. Here we go. And very quickly again we can see this. We've improved it even further. So there's a lot of things we can do there with the geometry. Now the screen there at the moment is a 2.4 spectral screen. That's a 2.4 gain screen. Now, of course, I might want to change the lamp wattage. So I could change the lamp wattage if I need to, and also change the screen type. So first of all, let's change the screen type to say a Clarus 1.4 gain screen. And very quickly, you can see what that's done there. The lower gain screen with much improved viewing angles and much greater spread of light is now giving an exceptional viewing experience that everybody sat in practically every seat. So very quickly, these two demonstrations have shown you what can happen by alterations of auditorium geometry, of screen angle, and of screen type. So I'm now going to pass back over to Richard and hope that's been useful for you.
So looking at that example, you can see that if we've got high gain screen options particularly, premium seating might look more at the moment like it does on the left, but in reality it should be more on the right, into more of a clustered shape, more of a sphere or a circular shape, although displayed on the screen here more of a diamond. So we're focusing around that center of the seating area. Anything very unusual, but other media and entertainment sources choose different means of seating based on price. So if you look today at concert halls, theatres and live events, even sporting events, there's multiple ticket options based upon the viewing experience. So why in cinema do we only now just about have two? Look at this real life example from in the UK. You can see on the screen 5 different seating options, and that's just inside the first tier. There's 2 more above that, all based upon you as a consumer choosing the seating, the price that you want to pay for the performance you want to see. For example, could we have a seating model like this in cinema, where actually we say the best seats we might charge a slight premium for. Seats in between, we might well charge what we charge now. And the seats that suffer most, we could charge a lower price. But of course, the beauty here is that our consumers who come to the box office that want to buy that ticket know that they are not going to get the best viewing experience. Now, of course, the benefit from doing a model like that is that actually customers are more likely to be satisfied with the experience for the price they pay. So if somebody chooses to pay that premium price with a ticket and sit in the best seat, they will get the best view in that auditorium. Yes, it might not still be bright enough, but it will be the best seat for that specific auditorium. If they've sat in those red seats at the front because they wanted to see something and they wanted to pay a low price, they may well be more inclined to choose a higher value seat next time, particularly if they were seeing 3D. Now also, if they know that they get a better view from the middle seats, they're more likely to pay a premium, particularly for 3D. And actually, we at Harkness believe that a model like that might actually help to increase occupancy rates across the cinema, because you're opening up the affordability to a much larger group of people by giving them the option to choose a lower price seat, a medium price seat, or a premium seat. And of course, by having more occupancy in the cinema, it generates more box office revenue, potentially, and definitely more concession sales. More feedback from our consumers. And this really is focused on our Claris technology. But you can see that with the Claris screens, what you're able to do is to distribute light better across an auditorium. And Matt showed you that very well within the examples. So the consumers saw, in this instance, 2D and 3D content on a Claris screen and 2D and 3D content on one of our Spectral 240 screens. And 95% said that they would be more inclined to watch a 3D movie if it was on a Claris screen. And that was purely because of the visual experience, light being distributed better across the screen and back to the audience. They said 75% would be more willing to pick a seat outside of that usual central area if they were watching on a Claris screen. And again, you could see that from Matt's example just a slight bit earlier, where by having light distributed across the auditorium better, and more of those dark blue seats available, the viewing experience is much improved across the whole auditorium. It's important to remember that your customers are absolutely vital to the business. So giving them the best quality viewing experience will keep them coming back to the cinema. As we said earlier, there's many different media available to them now. And making sure that the cinema and the big screen experience remains the best possible is to protect that box office revenue. But of course, you can't solve all the visual issues yet. We're still struggling for light in auditoria. We're still in some cases not able to optimize and curve or tilt a screen because of geometric constraints within the auditorium. But for what little we can do, the most important thing is to make sure that we have the auditorium optimized. As 74% of you said that the visual experience was most important to you when you're implementing premium seating. So getting that screen and that light back off the screen correct is vital. Let's talk and show you exactly how you can improve that visual performance, not just for the premium seating, but the whole auditorium. So I have Matt alongside me still. What we'd like to do is open up for some Q&A. So if any of you have any questions on what you've seen this afternoon, we'd be happy to help. We've also got our digital screen modeler tool in front, so we're quite happy to model and show you some other examples. If you want to ask any questions, you can do so by entering in the Okay, so we have a question here about the research. The research was back in March this year. The full report is on our website and available to download. You'll find it from within our Claris microsite, and you'll also find a link to it from within our news stories. Another question here. A question asking why Claris is so much better at distributing light. We covered this on a recent web seminar, which is also on our website. But in short, the Claris technology enables us, because it's a new coating, to distribute light more evenly across the screen. There are some scientific reasons as to why this does this, but we would strongly suggest having a look at that web seminar, which is around 20 to 30 minutes long, to really understand what that technology is doing. Another question coming. A question asking what would be the recommended brightness level for 3D? You're seeing studios now asking for 6 and 8 foot lamberts on their movies. In the field, we're seeing auditorium where 4.5 foot lamberts is standard acceptable. In reality, we would typically suggest nothing less than 4 foot lamberts if possible. But really, if you can push the light to get up to 6 foot lamberts, the experience is incredibly improved. Questions come in relating to the modeler. Could we just, somebody's asking if we could widen the auditorium that we just showed.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, hopefully you can now see I've got the auditorium size tab up. Now you can clearly see by the geometric shape change, the spread of light carries on in its envelope, and now you can see, of course, as you widen it, there's a lessened viewing experience. But in this case, with this screen choice and the geometry shape, it's still a good viewing experience. There are some seats in obviously the front, right, and left that again start to lose, which are slightly more favourable with the previous shape, but still it's looking good in that particular configuration. Of course, if I jump to the game screen like we had to begin with in this auditorium, if I go up from say 1.7, I go up to say a 2.4 spectral. And again, you can see showing in that particular auditorium, the higher gain screen wasn't the screen of choice. So I'll just move that.
Okay, just before you do that, Matt, the other part of the question was, could you please again show why the seating rake is so important? So perhaps could we lessen the seating rake?
Yeah, absolutely. Right back down to 60 degrees. Here, the actual change in the light now, and it's again less favourable still.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Another question has come in, Matt. Question asking, does curvature of screen affect what you've just been showing?
No, the curvature of screen, what we're looking at now is really each patron sat in the centre seat looking at the peak brightness on screen. So if everything's configured correctly, that's typically at the centre of the screen. So that's only peak brightness. Curvature is affecting centre to edge uniformity. So of course, curving a screen can improve an experience for a viewer, That's when you're looking at the full spread of light, whereas here we're really illustrating a peak light, which of course is very important and a very easy way to show which seats are getting the best amount of light and which are getting the worst. But once you've got to that situation, without a doubt, further screen optimization can come into play, and different curves, different curves can make a big difference depending on the gain of the screen. And certainly that's a consultancy service we do offer.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Another question has come in. Are architects aware of the work that you're doing and of the ability and need to ensure that the brightness is better distributed? Well, we are very established in dealing with architects. We have very good relationships with some of the main cinema architects around the world. They do understand the need to get this right. What they have traditionally is a tool to be able to work out exactly what they needed to do to achieve the best viewing performance. They, the main architects around the world, are starting to adopt the digital screen model into their workflow program to enable them to make sure that the designs they place in front of you as customers are perfect, or as near to perfect as they can get, so the viewing experience is as good as possible. And we believe that this will become more of their workflow process in the years to come. And hopefully in time we'll be able to use tools like the digital screen modeler to work directly with their software to make sure that that process is accurate all the way through. Okay, well, we seem to have come to the end of our questions, unless anybody else has any other questions they'd like to ask rather. Apologies. Well, just before we leave you today, we hope that you found this very useful, and it's drawn some interest and thoughts into how we position premium seating, and maybe got you thinking a little bit more about the need to get this right at the build stage. So your next steps, well, please do come and see your Harkness representative show East in Miami in October. We'll also be out in Hong Kong at Cine Asia in December. You've seen the digital screen modeler in use this afternoon, as you have done now, hopefully on many occasions. It's available on the Apple Store, on the Android Play Market, and also via our website. It's free to download, free to use. We will you use it and you register it to get full use of some of the features you've seen this afternoon, including the visual performance indicator. It will also enable you to share some of the build information with us to get some further advice if you're planning premium seating. We would, of course, always recommend that you seek some advice on optimizing the auditorium. Make changes. We do have a service where we offer that for free. It's our commitment to ensuring that you get the best out of that equipment. Of course, we've shown you some of the information from our Project Claris. As I said earlier, that report is on our website. We would absolutely recommend that you go and read that report. Of course, many of you know your Harkness representative, so if you have any further questions from today, please do contact them or Matt or myself. And lastly, of course, do please visit our website. I'm aware during Matt's part this afternoon we had some sound issues. I do apologise for that. But lastly, just before you go from Matt and I would like to thank you very much for your time this afternoon. If you do have any further questions, please do drop us a line. But thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to speaking with you.